Hey everybody, my name is Dr. Jared Leon. I am a board certified functional neurologist. I have a fellow in vestibular rehabilitation, and I've been practicing as a functional chiropractor for the last 17 years. I only have one mission today, to talk about the stress and how it's affecting us because, as we know, the world is chaotic. The coronavirus has affected every single one of us from any state, any country, any part of this globe you're in. You've heard of this now. Most of us are living in fear. Most of us are living in isolation. Most of us are not working. Most of us are not having our income. Most of us are normal income, okay? Most of us are not having a lot of fun at home. Some of you are. Some of you enjoying every bit of this. But a lot of us are watching the news. They're on Facebook. They're watching a lot of stuff that's really been fearful, negative thinking. So my goal today is to give you a different viewpoint of this. How does all this stress affect your brain? I'm going to make it as quick and as fun as I can. And literally, I can give you a 3-hour class on this, but I know that's not what Facebook is going to offer us today. And I know we can only give so much as far as time and energy. So with that, I thank you for joining me, and let's get started. So there's two basic concepts, right, of stress. And that's kind of what we all look like on days. Some days we look happy, some days we don't. But there are two basic concepts. I'll start with the second one. It's an acute stress, right? So that would be as simple as really the current world we lived in. Every day 6 weeks ago, everything was perfect, okay? Or close to perfect in your normal life. And then all of a sudden, boom, the coronavirus spread across the world and we got feared and panicked. Stress, acute stress. Number two, chronic low levels of stress. So that would be something, to make it very simple, I have bad posture and I sit wrong every single day. Repetitive, low stress, low chronic level stress affecting my spine, giving me low back aches, neck ache, things to that nature. A chronic low level stress. You're not happy in your relationship. You're living together with a spouse that you're not really in love with any longer. That is a chronic low level stress. Okay, keep it simple. You're having trouble with your children. You have teenagers. Chronic low level stress. You can't get away with it. It happens every single day. The way we sleep, if you sleep on your stomach, that would be a chronic low level stress. You're straining your neck. You're pushing your neck in the whole night long. It makes no sense, but that's what we're doing. Chronic low level stress. So again, I'm speaking quick to get the message across. You got two things. You got acute stress and chronic stresses. Low level stress. So what do we do when we have this stress, right? What happens? How are your daily emotions? How are your emotions? Pick it on this chart. I thought it was fantastic. When are you home? How are your emotions? You can pick one. When you're wearing a mask, pick one. When being trapped in your home for the last 6 weeks, when being around your family, when not going to work, when watching news, how do you feel? After you eat not so healthy foods, after you eat a healthy food. So my thought for this is quite simple, is to kind of summate it all together, right? So what happens in the real world when all this is going on? What are the most common negative factors we're feeling right now? I'm going to make them simple today. You ready? Looking at this chart. Increased anxiety in the world, 100%. Increased depression, 100%. Isolation increases depression. Fear, worry, negative thinking, negative thoughts. These are all negative concepts to the body. They give you anger. They give you resentment. They let you not feel your best. So would we be clear that if you feel like that, that can be a chronic low-level stress? And if you raised your hand, the answer is yes, because it's been 6 weeks. We can't get away from it all. Or 7 weeks. We can't get away from it all. We're stuck here. So the opposite. Think of a happy thought. Think of going to like a beautiful beach. My favorite spot in the world is Anguilla. I love sitting on that beach and just reading a book or jumping in the ocean. Those give me happy thoughts, right? So just take a moment to put in your mind what you feel like in those moments. Or when you're surprised and you're like, wow, that was so fun. Or you went on a roller coaster and you had that natural euphoric happy feel. Just to understand how dichotically different they are. So now let's get into what occurs on the brain. So let's get into this. Very quick, again, I know you're not neuroscientists and you may not want to be, but I'm just going to teach you to every human who's watching this, and if you know this, this is great, and share this. If you love this stuff, share it. If you don't know this, we'll just sit back. Here you go. All of those emotions really get processed. The easiest answer is through that frontal lobe right in the front, and I put it right there. Yes, the frontal lobe is split into different areas and it goes through frontal lobe into the limbic system. Yes, and you can see all this. It's on the slide. I'm not going to worry about that, but that's not today's important part. The concept of today is this. What part of your brain are these emotions being processed? And realistically, if you look at this beautiful picture, this front part in the front here is really where all of these emotional things happen. So make it really simple. Do all of these negative stinking thinkings that we're doing, fear, worry, negative thinking, watching news, what we feel like when this is going on, feeling trapped, feeling isolated. Do you think that increases or decreases the ability of our frontal lobe? Right. The answer would be it decreases. Because why, if you're an animal, which we are, would we want to use the most beautiful new part of our brain, which is really going to be about executive decision making, is the big one. It does all these other things here as well, but just think it's like your executive decision making concept. Why would you activate that part of the brain? It's not so much needed. Right now we're in a survival mechanism through this massive stress, right? So you're going to use older parts of the brain, more like evolutionary animals, because there's no sense in using this new part of the brain. That's all we're going to talk about on this slide. I want you to understand that, okay? The frontal lobe is again listed right here. This beautiful part that's like lit up in this pink orange. So that's the frontal lobe. The M, the P, and the M on the bottom, which if I had a pointer, I'd show it to you, but you see them, I labeled it. The top M is the mesencephalon. This is all your brainstem. The next piece is your pons, and the next piece is the medulla. All I need you to understand, that's part of a highway, and I'm going to explain that in a minute because it's super important to understand this on a brain model. Because remember, stress will affect the brain. Okay, so here is a really crazy looking slide, and I know this, and this is super complicated, so I'm going to make it really simple, I hope. Okay, the red, let's look at the left side, okay? The mesencephalons, that don't worry what it means, it just means your brainstem, okay? It's going to send a pathway on a normal working, let's say your brain 7 weeks ago without stress, okay? So let's follow this red line real fast. The top goes right to the frontal lobe. That plus means it excites it. So I get a thought within my brainstem, something positive is occurring, like going on the beach. I get something that occurs that goes to my frontal lobe, that excites it there. That then has a link to the PMRF. Don't worry what it means, but it means the pontomedullary reticular formation. It is an amazing nuclei within brain that does so much, but that's not today's class. So its number one job is to naturally inhibit or reduce the IML, which is the next part. So if we have a healthy brain, my healthy brain, it's genius. I get excited, so you can see the brainstem gets that excitation of going to the beach, okay? It goes on the bottom, it excites the IML, my stress response. My heart rate might elevate just a little bit because I'm excited. I'm looking at this beautiful beach and I'm thinking, wow, I want to live here. And then you have this exact same mechanism that goes to your frontal lobe, excites, goes to the IML to excite, the PMRF to excite it, and that's going to inhibit, its number one job is to inhibit the IML. So not being confused here you go. I get something at the same time to excite my brain, and at the same time I get a relationship to say, hey, let's control how excited I get so my stress response will go away, right? Because if the tiger is running at me, I don't want to be super excited and stressed for a long period of time, right? Chronic low-level stress. It affects us. All disease states in America beyond this virus, literally 90 to 99% is related to the epigenetic environmental situation of stress. Okay, so this on the red side or the left is all about you working perfectly in your brain. So let's talk about crazy stress now, as I stated. So I'm trying to speed up because this could be a really long class. So here you go. Now I get that same exciting piece, okay? So my mesencephalon, my brainstem says, go, go, go. But now my brain's not really optimal because I have a lot of this negative thinking, right? So I have this depressive, negative thought. Like I just watched, let's say, the news. And I'm not going to say if you believe it's fake news or real news, but I'm saying it's just depressive news. I'll call it that. So that depressive news, as I just stated 2 slides ago or a slide ago, is going to reduce my frontal lobe because it's not making me excited. It's giving me negative thinking, right? So I don't need that new part of the brain. In consequence, it's going to inhibit my PMRF, my pontomedullary reticular formation, right? So if it does that, it's going to do a negative times a negative or disinhibition So in other words, it's going to go negative times a negative. It's going to excite my IML. So I highlighted this. So in other words, as I stated, I got that happy thought for that moment or a stress thought or any thought. Well, everything excites the IML. In other words, everything, so I don't want to be confusing, everything basically excites the stress response for a moment or two. It has to for the way the brain works. But as I showed on the left, you would have a natural mechanism to shut it down. But here on this right side, or this orangish yellow color, what's happened is through my thought process of stinking thinking, depression, anxiety, latent events, my frontal lobe gets reduced, reducing my PMRF. When that gets reduced, it can't do its job, and its job is to do 4 major things, but the only one we're talking about now is number 1, is to inhibit my IML. It can't, so I get an excited stress response. What would that do? So if you've ever heard about stress response or not, because I know a lot of you are not doctors, it's basically split like a seesaw in the human brain. Okay, I like to call everything like seesaws in the body, so just remember you're a kid, and that's the way it works, right? So you get the fight or flight response called the sympathetic system. So every time I'm stressed out or I have something exciting in really life, I'm going to go up. Like a tiger came out, my sympathetic goes up. My parasympathetic goes down. So it's this relationship on a consistent level to get stressed, reduce stress. Get less stressed up, get reduced stress. You can read here all the things that the sympathetics do versus the parasympathetics. You probably learned it when you were a kid, maybe, as sympathetics are the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic is the feed or breathe system, or the rest and digest. So all I need you to understand this slide is this. If my sympathetic system goes up, right, the big ones that are going to occur real fast, so just understand this, right, my pupils are going to get big, right, because if that happens, if the tiger is coming at me, or stress, I want my eyes to be open to see everything. My heart rate is going to increase faster. Why? My cortisol is going to go up. So I might gain weight because I'm not thinking of any of these things. I'm trying to shunt all of this blood to my muscles, right, to run. So I might get more pains in my arms and legs. My cholesterol is going to start free floating in my system. Why, right? Because it's natural, because if the tiger bit me, that cholesterol is going to basically coagulate my blood so I don't bleed out. So these are all natural processes that can occur. But what happens when they're stuck on too long? I'm going to reduce my concentration, reduce my focus, reduce my ability to want to motivate, right? Because I'm going to lose my dopamine receptivity. I'm going to decrease my serotonin, so I'm not going to be so happy. And as a consequence, I'm going to stimulate my other neurohormones called norepinephrine to stimulate increasements of these things. In my adrenal cortex, my adrenal medulla, it's going to stimulate my heart rate. So why is this so important? Because when we're stuck in this moment, making it simple, you increase yourself to have higher probabilities of pain, depression, anxiety, more fear, worry, negative thinking, and a reduced immune state. So, brain stress from chemical, emotional, and physical environments. So, in simplicity, here's what I want you to understand. The human brain really doesn't understand the major difference if there's something chemically put into our system, such as a drug, or a chemical, such as genetically modified organisms. My brain doesn't understand what those are. GMOs are not really good, but that's not today's story. But that's just a chemical. Aluminum for my body is a heavy metal, not good for us, okay? And why would they put it in different foods and certain certain things in life have aluminum. Why? It's a neurotoxin for the brain, but that would be a chemical stress. Just keep it simple. I'm trying to go non-controversial today. Emotional. So if I'm stressed out through emotion, right, that's going to cause my brain to have a stressor. So it's the same thing in your life. If you've had to study for finals, there's a lot of times when you're studying for finals, that emotion gets to you. And what happens? Dumps your immune system, you get sick, right? If you're going through a trying event in life, you have a higher chance of getting sick. So a physical stress, just fast forward. Chemical, physical, emotional, right? Physical stress is simple. I lifted something too heavy. I'm sitting on my butt too much because I'm home more than I normally am. So what I really want you to understand is a chemical, physical, and emotional stress all stimulate your sympathetic nerve system to keep you in a fight or flight relationship. And a fight or flight relationship is the opposite of healing. So if my fight or flight is up, my immune system is down. So how do we get to this stress-free living, right? How can we live this happy life? It's going to be quick and easy. Number one, you have to understand that the same level of thinking as if you're watching this crazy TV on a consistent level, you're watching the news, you're looking at Facebook, Instagram, all social media, YouTube, whatever it is, right? That negative thinking is officially messing up your brain in a response coefficient to decrease your frontal lobe, right? Decrease the output of the PMRF, and then it can't do its job to excite the IML. So now you have this excitation, the stress response goes up, your immune system goes down. So now you're at a risk, okay, of increased depression, increased anxiety, increased cholesterol, increased heart problems, right? Increased blood pressure problems. Sounds like America, right? Increased weight gain, increased negative thinking again, increased mood swings, increase the probability of continual sickness. So how do we turn this around? Number one, you got to think with happier thoughts. Number one, thinking happy thoughts is huge in your healing every day. Number two, you must work out or move, do some kind of positive exercise, right? That will be stimulation of the frontal lobe. All these things that I just said stimulate your frontal lobe to make that other side work better. So if I stimulate my frontal lobe of a healthy brain, I will stimulate the pontomedullary reticular formation to do its job to inhibit the stress response or the IML. Now that's super important. So again, we have basically, so far, we have thinking good thoughts. Number two, we have exercise. We have to eat clean, right? You're home. This is the greatest time ever to do good stuff and eat clean. You have more time to cook. So there's no excuses. Get up. No excuses. Let's do this, okay? 4, we must rest and relax at a good level. That's pretty simple at this point. Everyone's sitting around all the time. But I mean, you only rest and relax when needed. It doesn't mean sit down all day. That's overkill, okay? Everything is within moderation. The 5th piece to my 5 pillars of health to get you back on track is quite simple, and that's to get a chiropractic or a functional neurology checkup. Someone has to be checking your spine and nervous system to make sure the free-floating ability of your brain can go down through the spinal brainstem into the spinal cord, out through those muscle glands and organs. So it's super important. If you've never gone to a chiropractor, maybe go get a checkup to get your nerve system checked, because when you stimulate your nerve system, thereby reducing the stress response almost instantly through this pathway, what actually happens is you improve your nervous system to improve your immune system. So they're direct relationships, okay? So that's, I know I'm going fast. I hope you're getting this. So those are the 5 basic pillars of optimal well living and clean living, okay? Meditate, pray. Those are fantastic things, right? But what is that part of? That's really part of the positive mental attitude or thinking positive thoughts. So in summation, we have to get away from the way we've been thinking every single day, because all it's doing is setting up a actual safety pin cycle to keep you in pain, keep you sick, keep you depressed, keep you feeling anxious. That's not living. I want to be this picture. So if you want to be like this, I can't magically say do this, but this is easy enough, man. Just take a snooze from all of the social media for a minute. If it's not your belief of something positive, shut it off. Get rid of the news for a while. Keep it with nature right now. Keep your mind pure. Keep your body pure. This is Dr. Jared. I challenge you to be better than the day before. My email is Dr. DRJARED, the number 5 @gmail. Anytime, if you want to, please ask me any question in relation to this. Please, once again, share this. Have a